Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is Zuck Family Letters, 1965 to 1967. This was originally published as Zuck Family Memories Collection, or ZFMC number 56, on August 19, 2001. The letters include those from Helen Lacey, my father's mother's sister, Evelyn Zuck, my father's mother's sister-in-law, Barbara Smith, my father's cousin, Gertrude Ray, my father's mother, and Harold Freilich, my father's cousin. And okay, so let's get started. Excuse me. 186 West College Street, Oberlin, Ohio, Sunday, undated, circa 1965. This letter is from Helen Zuck Lacey. Dear Ruth and John, how like you to keep in mind all of this time my wish or request for the pretty shell chimes. I really meant to pay for them, but am most pleased to accept them as a valentine and, quote, with love, from some of my favorite people. Now all that I need is a house to hang them in. You no doubt know that I have sold my beloved Lacey Woods, and will become an orphan or gypsy, I fear. However, for the next 5 months I am living here on College Street, in a very lovely old Oberlin home, while its owner visits her daughter in Belgium. There are 7 senior men, students, living upstairs, so I am sort of in my house mother role again. I do want you to come and see me here. Perhaps you know of this house, the Shepherd House, just 4 doors west of Dascombe. I have everything to entertain with, even a guest room. So some spring day, hie yourself over this way. There is much that is new to see on campus, especially the new conservatory, which is worth a trip over here. My grateful thanks for your thoughtful gift. Affectionately, Helen. And the next letter again is from Helen Zuck Lacey. Tuesday morning, undated, circa 1967. Dear Ruth and John and all of your fine family, Sunday was such a pleasure. The fine dinner in your lovely dining room with family and children was like a different world. I have eaten in college dining halls now for over 10 years, and each year it is a less desirable way to eat. Leisure and graciousness have long since been forgotten. So when I am a part of such a setting as yours, the whole world changes for me. Gertrude and Doran stopped by for a little while, saw and played my new piano, and then on their way. None of us were hungry, no wonder. I'm sending on to them a very fine letter I received from Harold Freilich yesterday. Then they will send it on to you, and no need to return it. Today is a strong winter day, as Mr. Love just said. He's picking me up to go to our, quote, Victuals Club dinner. A select few of us, supposedly retired, form this dinner club, not gourmet, just victuals. But of course it takes on an elegance just by the homes of the people who are in it. Can't you just see me trying to have a dinner party in my little living room, and it is my turn next? I mailed the Venture magazine yesterday. Don't be in a hurry to return it. Again, my warmest thanks for Sunday and all of your kindness to me. As always, my love, Helen. And the next letter is from Evelyn Zuck to Lena Hecker Zuck. This is from the Evelyn was married to Ted Zuck, and so this is a letter to her mother-in-law. Quote, your son Theodore has added another distinction to his outstanding medical career. His biography appears in the new British publication, Dictionary of International Biography. This is the second volume and contains the biographies of some 3,000 outstanding Americans. The first volume contained approximately 2,000 biographies of people other than Americans. So the dictionary is truly international in biographical scope. That means Ted was one of only 5,000 biographies throughout the world to be honored by inclusion in the dictionary. I'm quite proud of him, and I'm sure that you are too. We just received the volume this week, and according to the preface, a special copy of the edition has been added to the Queen's Library in Buckingham Palace. And of course, our volume has been placed next to Who's Who on our library shelves. The next letter is from Barbara Smith, who is my father's mother's sister's daughter, and therefore my father's cousin. Marion, Ohio, undated, circa 1967. Dear Ruth and John, our fall was a mess. I was sick from Lakeside on, have just begun to feel half civilized. Largely my, quote, middle age, I guess, and the less said about it the better. Anyway, that's why you didn't hear from us about coming down. I hope we can play something after the holidays. Harold was here a week end in September, en route to a convention in Cincinnati. Terry has written several times, and he just loves his school, fortunately. Have a good holiday, all of you. Love, Barbara. And the next letter is from Gertrude Zuck Ray, my father's mother. Sandusky, Ohio, Monday, February 20th, 1967. Dear folks, Doran is mailing the diary to Mark. There's no hurry to return it. Perhaps it would be better for you to keep it until we see you, since mailing does involve some risk these days. I found it intensely interesting. Really should copy all of it, since it's bound to deteriorate further as time goes on. We were home a little after 9, stopped in to see Helen's new piano at Moore House. She seems to belong in that lovely old house. Do hope she can get established in some place of her own before too long. We all agreed yesterday was a real treat, the fine dinner and the joy of being with your family. Helen does miss family increasingly, and yours seems to fill the lack of her own. Tell Peter I have his red clown on the breakfast nook table. He's really cute, wobbling around against the window. After your vacation in the Bahamas, perhaps you can get over some Sunday, and John and Doran can go through the California pictures and mark them. So many touching reminders of what is past and gone. There was a turtle dove singing outside this morning. He must know more about the coming of spring than we do. Love to all of you, Mother. And the next letter is from Barbara Smith, my father's cousin. 1081 Kingwood Drive, Marion, Ohio, Sunday, May 28, 1967. Dear John and Ruth, a week or so at the County National Honor Society banquet, we sat across from Ed Messenger, who was checking your address for the purpose of the 25th high school reunion. We wanted to tell you that if you want to come, we will be gone, but you are welcome to stay at our house. Terry will be here. He is coming the first week in June to work in Marion and tend to our house while we are in Europe, and I'm sure he would be glad to have some weekend guests. You are most welcome if you want to come. I am counting the days until we take off. Bill gets out of school Friday, but I go until the 9th. We'll leave from New York on the 13th and sail the 15th on the United States. So far we have plans made for a week in Ireland, a week in Scotland, and a week in Norway. The Freilichs will accompany us on these jaunts. Bill and I will also spend a week in London. And otherwise, we expect to operate from Harold and Marge's, seeing the English countryside. We come back on the France August 12th, so we'll be here in ample time for the lakeside jaunt, if one is planned. We hope so. I suppose you had a grand time on your spring jaunt to the Bahamas. Certainly the spring weather here has been nothing extra, but I'm glad it has stayed cool. Let us know if you would like to come down so we can alert Terry. Love to all, Barbara. And the next letter, a very long letter, is from Harold Freilich to Helen Lacey. And Harold was living in London, in England, over in the British Isles, working for American Life Insurance Company in Coventry, England. This is a letter to Helen Lacey in Oberlin, Ohio. February 14th, February 1967. Dear Helen, thank you so much for your recent letter. I must apologize that I don't write more often. However, it does seem that our time here is just as much occupied as it was when we were living in Maine. We tend to get involved in activities and in the task of meeting people and trying to become acquainted. Consequently, we don't write nearly as many letters as we should. We did have a marvelous time over Christmas. I think the finest part of Christmas, of course, was having Terry and Debbie here and having the entire family together. Our trip to Switzerland was very rewarding and worthwhile. The weather was wonderful and the scenery simply magnificent. The skiing there is fabulous. The slopes are so varied and the mountains so high that you can do almost any kind of skiing that you desire. All of us skied solidly for the 5 days. It was truly a wonderful trip. The scenery and surrounding mountains in that area of Switzerland are almost indescribable. I took 4 rolls of colored slides, which came out fairly good, so we have a fine record of our trip. The time went so quickly over Christmas, however, and before we knew it, Terry and Debbie were on their way back to the States. That is the one hard part of a move like this. It certainly does separate the family at great distance. You ask about spring in England. Actually, we do not have winter here as we know it from Maine. We've had practically no snow at all during this winter. Many of the days during this past month have been in the 50 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees. You didn't even have to wear a coat. I don't think that they actually get any winter here because England is located in the Gulf Stream and we get the warm air. Consequently, the climate is very temperate, even though England is considerably north of Maine. Many of the flowers do seem to be budding out and blooming now. Several of the yards we walked by the other day had crocuses in bloom. I doubt that we will have any real winter weather at all this year. The English really take care of their flower gardens in wonderful style. You can walk up and down most any street and see the nice little flower beds arranged in the yards, neatly trimmed and all in fine style. I imagine you would thoroughly enjoy spending your Christmas with Steve, Connie, and your grandchildren. How widely our family is separated. It would be a real joy once again to have a real family reunion where we all got together. I just wonder if that will ever happen in the future. Our life here in England is very interesting and in some ways quite exciting. The temperament and the personality of the English people is quite different than that of Americans. They are much more reserved and much more conservative. The people here are harder to get to know. Actually, they take no initiative in trying to get to know you. You've got to take the initiative and make the effort to try to get to know them. However, once you have gotten to know the English people, they are very wonderful, warm, genuine people. We have formed several very good friends. 2 couples that we play bridge with quite regularly. One couple is a little older than Marge and I, and the other couple is a little younger. We have become very good friends with both of these couples and are thoroughly enjoying knowing them. The general philosophy here, which predominates, is definitely affected by a socialistic state. There is not nearly as much concern for retirement or for health care and things of this nature, because the government takes care of all of these things. They don't take care of them in a very adequate fashion, particularly in regard to retirement. The pension that the government pays out to a retired person is barely a subsistence living. However, the general attitude is definitely affected by this type of payout. In business, we do not find the English nearly as aggressive or as progressive as the Americans. In fact, some of my American sales methods, I think, quite amaze and shock some of the people that I have become acquainted with here. However, that's the job I was sent here to do, to train an agency force to sell insurance following the American marketing system, and that is the job I am going to attempt to do. As far as business is concerned, I do have the office started and in pretty good style now. I have 2 agents who are working now full-time. I hope by the end of this year we have an agency force of 4 agents. We are writing life insurance applications fairly regularly. I am not disappointed with the progress we have made so far. I wish we had done better, but at least we are pretty much on schedule that I had set for myself. We hope to sell 1 million pounds of life insurance during the year 1967. We have been taking several short trips in this immediate area recently, and we have several long trips planned. This past weekend, Mike had his midterm school break. That is, he had 4 days off from school, so we took a trip to the South Coast. We went through Salisbury and saw the beautiful cathedral there, which dates from the 12th century in its construction. Then we went on to the coast, to the town of Bournemouth, which is a seacoast resort town. My, it was good to see the ocean again. How we have missed the ocean since we have been here. Then we journeyed back up to Bristol and on to the town of Bath. Bath is a very fascinating city of about 80,000 people. The old Roman baths are located in this city. These go back 2,000 years. They were in active use and originally constructed in the year 49 BC. The one large bath is fed by a hot spring, the temperature maintained at about 80 degrees all the time. Surrounding the large bath are the small baths that are cold water. All of the ruins have been partially reconstructed and are still standing today. It is very interesting to see this area. We got back from this trip Monday afternoon. We thoroughly enjoyed it. The weather gave us a break also because we have 3 very nice sunny days. Mike has 3 weeks break between terms in April. We have an 8-day trip planned to Italy to visit the family of one of the AFS students we have had in the past, and driving back up through Luxembourg and Belgium, then on into the Netherlands for Tulip Time. The Tulip Time festivals and activities are starting just about that time in Holland, so we plan to spend a few days there. Naturally, we are looking forward to that trip very much. Mike and I and Marge have become real fine travelers together. We thoroughly enjoy the trips and just being together with the opportunity to see all these things. Mike's school that he is attending presents a real contrast to the school he was attending in Maine. This school is Warwick School for Boys. It was founded in the year 914 by Edward the Confessor. The school has been an active educational institution ever since the year 914. The educational system here is quite different from the States. Mike goes to school 6 days every week, all day long. He takes 10 subjects here as contrasted to 4 subjects that he took during the time he was in the United States. They don't seem to study the subject in as much depth here as they do in the U.S. That is, for example, in physics, Mike only has 3 classes a week, as contrasted to 10 classes a week in the States. However, instead of taking physics only 1 year, as he would have done in the United States, here he will take physics 3 years. Probably in the overall result, they end up with just as broad a knowledge of the subject as they do in the States. As a matter of fact, I think when they finish what they call their secondary schools here, this is probably the equivalent of having finished the first year in college in the United States. Naturally, we miss our beautiful new home that we had just moved into in Maine, and I would have to be perfectly honest to say that we miss many of the modern conveniences that we are used to in the States, which we do not have here. However, that is all part of the living and part of the experience, and the experience of living here wouldn't be truly representative unless we did live as the English live. I would not be honest if I told you that we did not miss the United States and also many of our family and friends. But I also have to say that we are happy here, and I think we will have greatly benefited and broadened when we do once return to the States. I have rambled on at some length, but this gives you a picture of what our life is like here. I do not write to Doran and Gertrude or to John and Ruth, so if you are with them at any time in the near future, you might let them read this letter also. Write us again. We do enjoy hearing from our family in the United States. We all send our love, Harold. Now there's one comment on this presentation, and it's from my father, John S. Ray, quote, "Dear Editor, ZFMC 56 received, read, and much enjoyed. What a wonderful colored picture of Harold with all his senior Olympics swimming medals. Swimming has been a wonderful thing for him, major accomplishments. Thanks for the information. The lengthy letter from Harold when they were living in England was a real joy to read. Thank you. I appreciate your efforts. Love, Dad." John S. Ray, Rocky River, Ohio. Well, that concludes today's presentation of Zuck Family Letters, 1965 to 1967. Good luck to you with your efforts in family history, if this is something that interests you. Finding, preserving, and sharing old letters, diaries, and photographs, and interviewing elderly relatives while they are alive. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.